Introducing my co-presenters. So my partners here, Greg Pollard, who's our resident skeptic in general, and with Cloud at First, and obviously Richard Stout, who's one of our main presenters and head of our technical services. Can you see everybody? All right.
Excellent.
Okay, so on today's agenda, we're going to do a little bit of a general conversation here about the cloud and SaaS industry, Lawson specifically. We're going to talk about Upgrade X, which is Infor's offering for migrating from on-premise to a SaaS cloud model. I want to talk about the implications and opportunities a little bit, and hopefully this is fun and informative way for your Friday morning. So, quick disclaimer slide here. We are not Infor. We're obviously not selling the Upgrade X, and we're not representing them. We are a third party. These are our opinions, what we see and what we feel about from the market. Right. And we also recognize that there's a lot of overlap in some of these terms. We've tried to keep them fairly organized in how we go through them. Certainly, if there's any confusion or questions or even corrections, please do let us know. And if you allow me 20 seconds, RPA Consultants, for those of you that might not know, we're a Lawson professional services firm established in 1999. We have over 50 consultants representing every single suite and area of Lawson and all technical solutions and services. We take pride in developing long-term relationships with our customers, and hopefully, if we haven't had the chance to work with you, we will in the future. And with that, I think we should get started with the cloud, which is a condensed mass of water vapor in the sky, of course.
Of course, yeah. Right. That's what we're going to talk about today, right?
That's what we're going to talk about today. So, so for purposes of the conversation today, obviously, we're using the metaphorical term generally used in IT to refer to
the cloud.
To refer to an elastic hosted infrastructure platform.
Exactly. Clear, right? I think many people are familiar nowadays with the term cloud, but that's how we're going to approach it. All right.
I think that it's very important to say a couple of things here with the cloud. Obviously, it's a very important part of Infor's strategy, and that has to do with the market in general, where everything's going, right? How people perceive and value companies. It's modern software solutions are delivered that way. We're going to talk a little bit about that. But Infor's sort of in a unique position, right? So some of the other companies that are out there started investing in hosting their solutions some time ago, whereas Lawson/Infor did not make necessarily that investment. So at this juncture, when they have this big push to the cloud, they're able to partner with Amazon, which is obviously the market leader, and they're going to do it better, faster than anyone else at the moment. But even more than that, it's very interesting in what Charles Phillips' angle is that going forward, if there's another market disruptor that changes this, Infor is uniquely positioned to move with that, right? So they're sort of in the driver's seat because they've decided to concentrate on what they do, which is software, and not sort of the hosting portion. Not only does that let them partner today with the market leader, but it lets them partner with a market leader in 2020. We don't even know who that's going to be.
And along the way, concentrating on developing the application, not worrying about their cloud, their infrastructure, leverage Amazon, and make the product as good as it can be.
Yeah, it's exactly the same value proposition that Upgrade X brings to customers.
Yep. Exactly, and now when we look at this this model, right? We're looking right now at the transition of Lawson going to the cloud, being on-premise and basically hosting that on-premise solution on Amazon. But long-term, the strategy is to get the benefits of those companies that have these types of delivery models, which includes standardizing platforms, hardware, not having to cater to all those things. So I mean, there's some obvious long-term benefits that are going to be a part of this. When we talk about SaaS sort of represents the software licensing model. Now, I've oversimplified here with the lease versus buy because it's a lot more than just licensing. From a licensing perspective, traditionally, we own software and when we pay maintenance on it. With SaaS, we're roping into a monthly fee some other items.
Exactly. So you're leasing the licenses itself, but you're also paying for the underlying infrastructure, the servers, the licensing associated with some of the Microsoft products and others, as well as just keeping the lights on, making sure that those are running, and also some of the first-line support. You're not having an additional monthly or annual support fee in addition.
And
so it's all bundled in there.
And understand what your costs are.
Exactly.
And for a lot of organizations, there's the added interest in just calling it an expense, right? This is
right, an operating
this is
expense,
operating
not
expense,
a capital.
and I have it all categorized and cataloged over time. You know, what's interesting is we're full circle in a weird way, right? These off-premise solutions actually started way back in the 60s for different reasons, right? Back then it was about computing power, about the expense of having these systems. It wasn't viable for companies to have them. So, you know, IBM and some of the other mainframe companies would offer their services that were centralized. In the 90s, you know, so computing power, obviously we see in the 80s, it gets to the point that it's affordable and portable and everybody can take it on. But in the 90s, it cycles back for a different reason, which is skill sets, right? So at that point, you know, the basic premise of the ASPs is I'm going to have technical expertise for these solutions that have this wide deployment that 100 different companies can't have, right? And when we get to SaaS, it's even a step further then, right? Because then it's not about concentrating on the talent. It's about taking advantage of, you know, what Infor likes to call it internet architecture, right? It makes more sense to give you access to a portal that I control than to try to develop solutions that are going to go on individual service in the first place.
Yeah, and an ASP, where an ASP is an expert in hosting software developed by other organizations, SaaS is the software developer having a hosted mindset in the base architecture of the system.
Right, and obviously we see that Salesforce is obviously the one that gets cataloged most often. There's an inherent advantage in building from that model, and especially when it comes to the hardware you have to sustain. You look at Lawson, it's throughout the 90s, multiple Unix boxes, multiple databases, iSeries, a lot of different things here. I think that's this laptop right here. Sorry, guys. Whereas you look at
this laptop's full.
Okay. You look at where Lawson is today, and taking advantage of that is going to be a multi-step process, right? First, we got to move people on to sort of this hosted thing, we got to standardize the platform, and then we can get into that whole concept of multi-tenant, you know, efficiencies of scale, maintaining and upgrading multiple clients at once. You know, there's probably a few steps to get there.
Exactly.
And you know, an interesting thing because when we see these paradigms shifting, and we clearly see this happening right now, there is large customer base that is migrating to the cloud. Specifically, loss of traditional on-premise customers that are migrating to the cloud. Is we don't always know exactly where it lands. We just know where it is at the moment. And I'm reminded sort of in the late 90s when I at least had a large collection of compact discs. I still have some in the garage. Can't barely throw them all away. And we had an immediate disruptor, which was, you know, illegally pirated MP3s that made us rethink of these files less as something that would play on the device and more as things that we would store in an electronic computer. But I think what's interesting is the immediate winner of that was clearly Apple, right? I mean, you guys remember they iTunes, iPods, basically remade their company. But how many people have iPods today? In fact, how many people have large files of MP3s that they play on their computers? I mean, today what we actually see is a large amount of streaming services that deliver those. So I think that it's the same thing here. All we know, we're probably in that you know, got disrupted in that iPod stage. We're going to migrate here, but where eventually this is going is going to be something I think a little bit less just moving your system out to the cloud and more.
Right. We don't really know what the end game is.
Right. We don't, but we're excited about it. So,
and it's an interesting analogy, but there's other things that probably have brought your 60s, 90s, 80s, 2000. It's the speed, the bandwidth out there, the pipes, the general acceptance from users that, okay, I can take my stuff, put it somewhere else, and it's going to be available to me wherever I am.
And in the case of Salesforce.com, you don't even need to know.
Right. Where is it? I have no idea.
Well, actually, so you don't even need to know, right? A lot of this you don't even need to know. Pandora, I've been listening to a lot, and it turns out that it actually downloads MP3s onto your laptop or PC temporarily. I guess.
Don't give away the secret.
Don't give away the secret. So sometimes behind the scenes, it's still doing the same thing.
Right.
But from our perspective, again, you have the bandwidth where it comes in, and yeah, I do like the analogy. So let's talk about Upgrade X, right? Because that is the term that Lawson's been using for a while.
Right.
And it's essentially, from our perspective, it's a triple play, right? It talks about going from on-premise, version 9, and perpetual license to cloud-based, upgrading to 10. That 10 upgrade is a big key component of it. Yep. and turning to SaaS licensing. So it's three separate things all in one, and they happen to be three things, all three things that Infor is highly motivated to get you on, right? They want to update the customer base to the newest and latest and greatest software, the one they're investing in developing, and they want to become a SaaS, cloud-based model. And part of that, I mean, new customers, pretty much all we're seeing is that type of service, and it makes sense. But they also want to migrate that existing base of 1,800 or so, not just Lawson customers. This is an Infor thing, and this applies to their entire product set, LN, all the manufacturing products. But from our perspective, obviously, we're focused on Lawson. And just a distinction real quick between, we heard a lot about cloud business suites at Inforum and some of the other Lawson marketing and messaging. And cloud business suite is sort of, once you start from that premise of the type of organization you want to be, which is sort of that Salesforce SaaS model, and you have a software that is still, it's not multi-tenant, what is that called? Single tenant?
Single tenancy, all right.
You still have that provisioning thing, right? It's like you're creating instances every time, sort of behind the scenes, downloading that MP3.
There's a different combination of products for each deployment, and that does not lend itself well to economies of scale that you're looking to achieve.
So what you do is you try to package certain sets that you can easily replicate, and that makes the provisioning quick, right? So that's why when you look at the cloud business suite, you have FinPro HCM, certain I'll call them prepackaged license sets.
And then industry-specific products, right? So you have the Cloverleaf in our example here. You might have the Hanson in the public sector. Package that all together, whether a customer uses all of those at first.
Right. Very smart.
Exactly.
The thing is, when they looked at the existing Lawson customer base that has been, getting on the software and licensing over 30 years of different models, it didn't exactly fit neatly into all these buckets suites, right? So then when I say I want these guys to come on board too, and they don't necessarily want my defaults, I got to cater to them. That's where this Upgrade X really comes into play. It's about matching your existing license set. You ended up with GL and AP and AC or whatever it is, and we'll give that to you, and we'll bring it up. And we'll accommodate some of the other things that you have going on that might be unique.
A little bit more flexibility, exactly.
More flexibility. And, in fact, the Infor guys summarized that very, very well for us. They say Upgrade X is really for existing customers, and it's
this is an Infor slide, right?
Custom packaging, right? This is an Infor slide. Yep. You see the big quotations. We're definitely giving credit here. Okay, so let's get down to the meat of this. Is to upgrade X or not to upgrade X? That question comes down to.
That's what matters for our audience here, right?
I think three key decision points,
including our audience in person.
Audience in person. First time we have live hecklers on one of these webinars. We're very excited. So it's cloud, 10X, and SaaS, and I think that we should attack each one of these individually. And we'll take the easiest and first, which is cloud. I'll let you guys talk about that a little bit.
Right. So I mean, just simply what we're trying to illustrate here, as you're deciding if this is right for you, and it's not right for everybody. I still contend that it will be right for everybody.
That it is right for everybody. Yeah.
That it will be right for everybody at some time, whether it's right now or not. Here's kind of some of the compelling reasons that we're showing here. Of course, we just covered if you're, that's fine. If you're a new customer, makes a lot of sense. Why try to build up all this knowledge internally? It's a complex system to support. If you don't have a data center, maybe some of your infrastructure is not there. Organizationally, you might be spread out throughout the country, and you'd still have kind of this central point anyway. Short-staffed, so either you don't currently have the staff, or you don't want to necessarily build the staff to support some of the new technologies with the newer version of Lawson. Project backlog, we'll talk about a little bit later, is when you're busy supporting the system, you're probably not getting some of those other projects done, right? And you might already be hosted, so this might be a natural migration. You now have the option. And also, you're not a Microsoft shop, so this is getting a little bit into the upgrade coverage, which is next, but there are technologies now that you would have to build on a Microsoft platform and build some expertise internally to do.
Absolutely. It's just to sum it up, if you're a healthcare organization, then providing patient care is your core competency, right? Like maintaining a high availability data center, or maintaining the low level systems that run your business software really isn't the area you want to invest in.
Right.
And think about competing with Amazon for that talent, right?
Right.
And Amazon's investing $1 billion in
Right.
what they consider one of their core companies.
Yeah, Amazon
Right.
probably has more Stanford PhDs in their IT department than you do.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I'm still waiting for the day that I get all these emails of resumes from these millennials graduating from college with great IT and say, I want to come and be an Infor Lawson consultant for you and support your system.
They heard about that new COBOL thing.
Maybe we could sell it. And we have a little bit of a time warp machine here for Mr. Scott's going to take us in the way back.
This will get him excited.
1998.
So yeah, back in the day, we look at what Lawson originally looked like. It was a traditional client-server application where the back office was run on a mid-range system, Unix or AS400, and it really had one kind of front-end interface, which is like a green screen or like the lid interface, and most commonly run with an Oracle or maybe a DB2 database. As time went on, the system got a little bit more complex. Lawson 8, the web layer becomes a more prominent user interface. Gotta have web so that introduces a new kind of client requirement on the workstation. Self-service applications came out, which sort of complicated the web layer and introduced some complexities with multiple browser support. Add-on, bolt-on modules came out like LBI or MSCM that were, even if you're running Lawson on a Unix backend, were more commonly deployed on Windows, turning your Lawson environment into a heterogeneous architecture. Moving forward,
that's where you have different things.
That's where you have different things. And moving forward, if you adopted Smart Office, that only runs on a Windows server. It also has some unique workstation requirements, so that added a bit more complexity to manage on the desktop side. Now, moving forward to Lawson 10, this is really where we really see the expansion of the Lawson server ecosystem with adding in Landmark if you have process flow, the mandatory requirement for the web interface to use Mingle, which of course is based on SharePoint. It means even if you were able to avoid having a Windows system as part of your infrastructure in the past, you're adding that requirement in today, and also a dependency on SQL Server, regardless of what your backend database is running on. So with all of this complexity, it just means that there's more and more effort needed to put into maintenance and keeping the system up and running.
Exactly.
And
so
you have
therefore
less
it's a consideration for the cloud, right? Your underlying architecture of Lawson is getting more complex. And with new functionality comes more complexity in maintaining it. So here what we have is traditionally what we've seen is you are responsible for keeping your servers up and running, your system, the patches, the maintenance, and you'd look to Infor or your friendly RPA consultant to help you with some of the projects here, right? And now what we can do is start to shift that, trade places, as we're calling it here, so that Infor in the cloud is responsible for keeping the lights on, keeping your server up, maintained, patched, and so forth, and you can free up your resources to do these projects. Hopefully you'll still need a consultant here and there, but you can do a lot more internally with the resources, that more value-added
When you say it that way, it's almost bizarre that there's 1,800 clients out there responsible for uptime and maintenance, and Infor would be happy to do that for them.
Right, exactly, and they might be better at it.
And I think the conclusion on the cloud. I mean, I think there are still some folks that have trepidation about it, but for the most part, everyone we talk to sees it not only as the future, but as a very convenient setup to have other business applications on it. And I would say that if customers aren't migrating, for the most part, it's not because they don't want to be on the cloud. It's because it takes some effort internally and some budget to get there. I think most customers wish they were on the cloud, and some are willing to put in the effort to get there now, and some will do so a little bit later.
Exactly.
Which brings us to our next point. So cloud, A1, A+, all four, hopefully yours too.
It's our first of the triple play. Here comes number 2.
10x. So right now it's a tsunami. It's a tsunami of upgrades right now. I mean, the market has finally caught up to say, okay, we're going to do this.
Right.
They budgeted. They're happening. I don't know. There's probably 500 upgrades happening right now.
Currently, yeah.
So maybe Scott wants to share a little bit about 10x in general, or I don't have a presentation later today, so
yeah.
I don't want to give it all away.
No. Yeah, a lot of changes. Obviously, it's a platform change. It's not a major applications update, but it's definitely a big impact to the part of the organization responsible for keeping the system up and running. And I'm going to dive into those technical details at 2:30 p.m. Eastern today.
Yeah.
So please stay tuned.
Yeah, definitely.
Exactly. So this is the second part of the Upgrade X. And again, why is that attractive? There's a bit of an element of you kind of have to, right? I mean, let's be honest.
It's the bridge to XI.
And that's what this Infor slide is showing. And we'll be talking again more about version 10 at 2:30, and then we have an XI version 11 webinar at 4 o'clock. But this is just
XI.
Right.
It's most organizations want to get on new operating systems.
Right.
If you want to get on Windows 2012, you got to do 10, right? And some people are running 2003 out there, so they're looking at end of life support for that.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's also what Loss is investing in, right? All the small changes and functionality that's getting added all the time. It's not going into an old version of 9, So
right.
If you want to take advantage of these things, you got to get on with the program. Which brings us to the third and last one, and I'll toss this one straight at Greg Pollard. Is like, why are they trying to lease me the car I already own?
Exactly. I already own the licenses. Yeah. Why do I? What's with this SaaS model, right? Yeah. So it's not like going out and buying another Yugo. I know that's your first car, right? It's there's something there's more to the SaaS licensing, right? So there's more involved in this annual fee. So first of all, you're taking your annual maintenance and converting it into this SaaS license. So that's offset, so your first line support and everything. But as I mentioned before, there's a lot of servers out there. You saw the diagram. There's a lot of licenses on those VMs, even if they are the Microsoft licensing.
Your IBM licensing, your Oracle licensing.
Exactly, and then you have the other aspects of your infrastructure, networking and so forth there. And then it's maintenance. Basic maintenance is also included in the SaaS licensing, right? So again, it's this leasing, it's this software as a service that is maintained and they keep the lights on, and you worry about some other aspects of your system, such as getting better functionality out of it. So you're not just buying it again. You do ultimately still, we've heard, own those perpetual licenses, so you own your first car still. Your lease.
Yeah, free driver can be like, let me install all the stuff.
Yeah, exactly. You just want to have another system to play around with or fun. Who knows? You might have an acquisition. You might have something that you can use those other licenses for, or if you ever want to fall back on them in the future, you're probably going to be so happy you wouldn't want to. But and honestly, as you kind of alluded to before, they're making this attractive, right? So you're not paying many multiples of your current annual maintenance here. You're paying something that makes sense when you add up all the costs in some cases.
I think I want to underscore that for a second. And Infor is very motivated to get their on-premise client base migrated. And I think that to me, there are many instances in which a software company is motivated for a whole variety of reasons, new software, whatever it is, new models. And those are good times to have conversations with your reps and see what they're willing to do to make it work for you. So I think it's certainly worth exploring. So bottom line, SaaS or no SaaS?
Exactly.
Okay.
That is the bottom line question. So this is everyone will be there at some point. Again, is this the right time for you to try to go for that triple play and do your Upgrade X? I mean, those are the pros and cons that we're trying to kind of outline at a high level here.
So the big thing is you're already gonna have to spend the money or the resource time to migrate to version 10.
Yes.
And what you're looking at is, do I want to spend on the new hardware? It is sort of an opportune time. I've heard some customers also talking about moving to hosted, right? It's like, I'll move to, and maybe look at a hosted solution. Again, you got to look at all the bottom line numbers and so forth, but I think if you understand the long term, this is probably where we're all going to end up.
Right.
Then those hosted solutions I think are less attractive, right? You got to look at more than 2-3 years down the line. It's
right.
5 years from now, everybody's doing that, everybody's in infrastructure. Do you want to be the laggard? Then have to migrate again.
And just as we didn't know that it would all go to the streaming services, in your analogy, it was a lot easier to get to that streaming service once I've already converted all of my CDs onto my iPad. It's not if it takes a little bit of a different turn, you're going in the right direction. Big step. And this is coming from the skeptic.
The skeptic.
I know.
You're much more of the skeptic when we did this at first. I think we did this the first time in April. So
got to find.
De-skepticized. We're going to have to get someone new in here
or a different subject to be skeptical about.
So again, it goes without saying that these projects are very similar to doing a version 10 upgrade, right? There are professional services involved, even though it is a SaaS model that can be IPS, that can be one of the consulting partners that Infor has. I will say this, these projects, when you're doing this level of migration, they do force you to rethink potentially some of the things you're looking at. For example, maybe you have archiving that you've been putting off for many years, you're discussing, and all of a sudden, you're gonna take this big multi-gigabytes of data, you're gonna convert it from one database to another. Starts to make a lot of sense to maybe prioritize that. Potentially, you have what do we call it earlier? It was rogue automation.
Rogue out-of-band solutions, access databases, but possible that are not maintained or maybe even cataloged by the group that actually supports the system.
Customizations that are just built into the functionality now, or can be done in a different way. Maybe we don't need to take all of these forward.
I think that would be definitely part of the normal. In version 10, if you're doing the on-premise, you probably sort of continue to skip through those things and just sort of move forward. If you migrate into the cloud, I think those are things you want to take into account. So, sort of that project road mapping is like, what's the pending stuff that I kind of been putting off that I might want to address while this is going on.
Right.
And guest appearance today, we have Mr. Justin Braun to talk a little bit about a project approach. Because if you actually want to do this, it's him you talk to, not us.
Thank you, Keith. So welcome everyone. I'm fortunate to have been engaged on some of these version 10 Upgrade X migration projects. It's a great opportunity. We've been learning a lot. I have a lot more to share than the last time we did this webinar. As Keith said earlier, there's a lot of similarities between an on-premise version 10 upgrade migration and a cloud migration, so I'm going to try to focus on what's different. By and large, our project approach follows the common project lifecycle of planning, build, migrations. Testing and user acceptance is probably the most critical phase of any project, ultimately, for success, and that's no exception for an Upgrade X migration. After you've successfully completed your testing requirements, which are different for every organization, we like to go through a formal readiness assessment. And there's some very specific things we look at in a cloud migration related to what we call the throughput rate of the data migration, because it is absolutely critical that when you bring your system down on a Friday and you welcome your users to the new system on Monday, that there's adequate time in that 60-hour window to move all your data across. That is a key component not only of readiness assessment, but of each of your testing cycles.
Yeah. Uploading, transforming, and upgrading the data is no easy feat.
Correct. That's why we get paid the big bucks. And then obviously go live on any upgrade, including a cloud, should be essentially a non-event. It should be something that your users are genuinely excited about, and that you as project leadership are prepared for. We use some common terms in our project approach, which I've noticed other firms in the space use as well. Kind of common vernacular in an upgrade. So for those that aren't familiar, what is RICE? It's a wonderful grain. It's also an acronym that stands for Reporting, Interfaces, Customizations, and Extensions. Those are different for every organization. We, in our project approach, strongly recommend, if you don't already have it, collecting an an inventory of your rice, basically step one. So when we engage on a project and transition from our sales organization to our delivery organization, that's one of the first things you'll hear from RPM about is, hey, help us catalog your rice. We get a good sense of that during the pre-sales process. We get very specific on that when we move to deliver, because those are obviously very important considerations. Kind of anything that's outside of the normal, tried and true standard system functionality, what's unique about your organization can vary drastically. So if you haven't already begun, if you don't have such an inventory, there's no time like the present to start. Obviously, in a cloud migration, part of what you're getting, part of the value proposition of Upgrade X is the speed with which you can deploy your future state environments. I've seen real-life inexperience. Infor can spin up a new environment in a week. It's pretty impressive. I'm sure they have automations in place, and I mean, that's real life. So your new system build for you is kind of a non-event. It's the configuration and the tuning and the testing that really matters. So focus on what you can control. Again, just like a good inventory of your reports, interfaces, customs, and extensions, start cataloging how you use that system. And when I say you, I mean everyone. You need input from your finance group, your supply chain organization, your HR organization, the payroll organization. It is an integrated system. That's kind of the whole point of an ERP, so you need collaboration to get to a single test plan that stipulates your success criteria, ultimately. And keep in mind, normally when you go into planning, you might predicate your project approach on measure twice, cut once, 2 test cycles prior to go live. You might have 3. The timing of that, of when you do those, is very important. Your test plan should also stipulate what's being tested in each pass. If your first pass and second pass end up 1 month apart, does it really benefit you to ask every single stakeholder to run every single business process in your complete process inventory? Maybe so, maybe not. That's a risk-reward calculation that, again, is unique for every client. Obviously, you should test everything that your system does at least once. And if you've got the input and you've got the participation from your functional stakeholders, all the more power to you. Test it completely on each pass. But just leave room for, there might be a particularly gnarly interface that isn't ready until your second pass, and that's okay to just leave that out in the first pass. The benefit of a consolidated test plan, it benefits the PMO. It creates transparency, and that's a lot of what project management is ultimately about. It doesn't benefit those that are leading your project to not have visibility into what's going on in testing. So if you have a consolidated test plan, you can tell if you're 1 week into a 3-week test cycle, what % complete are we as a whole? How much of the test plan has finance completed, HR, supply chain? How are we looking on the reports and interfaces? So if you don't have such a test plan, that's a very high value add that we can bring to the table, or something that you should be talking to your implementation partner about. So focus on what you can control. That test plan, how you time those things. It's less about provisioning of the new system and more about getting comfortable and proving out the new system and driving towards user acceptance. So our project approach is totally end user experience driven. The migration cycles, I want to talk a little bit about that. Again, just common language. Keep in mind that when you time your migrations, this is at a high level, this is a lift and shift type project. So you're literally taking a snapshot of everything that exists in your on-prem version 9 today and moving it up to the cloud. And that takes time. Again, that weekend window is very important to plan for. And any migration is essentially, can kind of be broken down. I mean, there are exceptions to this, but at the first pass, I like to talk about migration as tech data versus application data. Application data is basically everything that you would expect to be in your transactional database, like a journal entry or an invoice or a payroll. That data is super time sensitive. It changes all the time. You might have transactions at 4:55 p.m. before your go live cutover weekend that can occur. Separate and apart from the application database, you have all this other data that the system needs, and you can kind of throw that under the umbrella of tech. That includes things like users, bookmarks, the contents of the Gen database and Logan, basically, your LDAP security repository. Also, dynamic information that changes all the time, perhaps less so than the application data. So you can take advantage of that when you plan ultimately your go-live migration, but also the testing. You can start your tech migration maybe 2 weeks before cutover, so that weekend downtime window you're focused on your application data. So that's something to think about. Anytime you take a snapshot of data in version 9 and move it up to the cloud in version 10, you're now in a double maintenance mode, right? So if you're comparing results in version 10 to where you came from in version 9, 3 weeks after the migration was done, that's something you need to take into consideration. Exactly what your application database looks like when you take that snapshot is an important consideration. We've worked with clients to time it so that they're literally right in the middle of a payroll cycle when they do that. That isn't the only way to do it. These are conversations you should definitely have with your implementation partner. But there are some efficiencies and some benefits to being able to go into your version 10 system on day 1 of testing and complete the payroll that you were in the middle of 2 weeks ago prior to the migration. So the timing is really important. Again, lots of good information, lots of good experience emerging from the opportunities that we've had. One last acronym, and it kind of gets back to the tech versus apps data migration that I was talking about. Who is this guy, Ted? He's also an acronym. It's the Tech Environment Decisions. It's usually a document that we collect during planning. The last thing I'll say, we hope that you choose to partner with RPA on these migrations. We'd love to work with you. Whoever you're working with, you should get very clear on what the expectation is for a deliverable per pass. If you work with RPA, each upgrade pass, you will be provided a standard document that includes a step-by-step breakdown of what was done for the migration, both tech and apps. It's essentially the go-live cutover plan that's being developed during your 2 test cycles. It includes start and stop times for each key step, so you can know how long did it take to move our database over. That's something that you should receive after each pass. And if you find as a result of your first pass that you don't have enough time in the day to get the go-live cutover weekend becomes a long weekend or whatnot, that's, again, something that you need to talk about. There might be some approaches you can apply to expedite that throughput, such as tuning servers or changing the tooling associated with that migration. It might introduce the need for an application data purge. You should absolutely expect to receive, whoever you're working from, including if you're doing the migration internally, start time and stop time for each task so that you can go into go live confidently knowing that the system can produce the throughput rate you need.
Good stuff. Good stuff. For those of you that know, Mr. Braun's a big Rolling Stones fan, and he's an even bigger fan of the 10-minute solo. But I think that's really helpful, right? Because that's
That's Eddie Van Halen right there.
So it's very helpful, and one of the things that I positioned to Stout and Justin, this is the 3rd time we rolled through this presentation, was like, okay, we should talk a little bit about what our experiences are. And the very first thing that Stout said was, they're all different. All these are different, and just because you do one doesn't mean you have everything that you can expect for the other one. And I know one of the things that Stout had mentioned was, aside from the factors of the obvious ones, what's your loss of footprint, and what infrastructure hardware you're starting from, there are other things that have to do with how your organization manages IT internally, like users, whether they're bound to Active Directory and so forth.
Right. So just because you're moving to the cloud doesn't mean that your specific configuration is going to match identical to every other client on the cloud. And one example of that is whether or not you're bound to Active Directory. And that decision impacts how the users, exactly how the system is initially loaded, how that migration happens, as well as the maintenance of that going forward.
Right. And the next slide, I think, is going to talk a little bit about upgrade cloud migration considerations. I mean, I think we've offered a lot here. What I would add, is there a clicker back there?
Yes.
What I would add is is keep in mind that this isn't going to happen overnight. I guess I'm probably the last man standing holds this. In theory, if you are an LSF only, single suite, maybe this can be done relatively quickly in 3 or 4 months. But I'm still waiting for that quick hit upgrade or upgrade X migration. I mean, these are 6-month projects. You want to plan as such. You want to understand as such. Obviously, the database migrations I think are a big consideration in terms of how complex that lift and shift is. And again, just to reiterate from earlier, if you have other projects sort of hanging on the sidelines that you haven't addressed, and you go to this upgrade X Cloud, you're going to want to take those into account. You're going to want to roadmap that. If archiving is part of your plan, you're going to want the things you can control. Again, you're going to want to time those. And ultimately, obviously, I think that the math is a big part of the consideration. And the last thing I want to talk about is what we really care about and I feel like this is the only thing we say math, and I guarantee you that one of those numbers is what does it cost me to maintain the system includes the internal resources that are supporting it. And I don't believe that's the right angle personally, because I think that when you look at the whole change in focusing on system uptime and maintenance and project value add, there are very few customers we run into that don't have hundreds of low-hanging fruit that they could roll out internally if they had the time. And those are the perfect resources to do it. They're familiar with the organization, they're better than infrastructure, they know Lawson, and you're looking at everything from deploying extra MSCM features, RQC, ESS, open enrollment, everything with IPA. I mean, it's endless what you can do. IPA, look at reporting. Reporting is the #1 thing that executives talk to us about that they're not happy with. And you have staff internally that can update this, that can modernize it, that can tweak it, that can change the distributions. There's so much that can be done. You look at LBI, Smart Notes is probably one of the least used, potentially most useful things that are out there. So when you're doing that math, and I'm not knocking anybody for doing that, you know what I would do? I would do an inventory of what the projects are that our business users wish that we've been working on the last few years. And if you want to take a step further, and look at what you can do internally, take a step further and say, how long do we think it would take to deploy RQC? 3, 4, 5 months? Start adding them up, right? And then say, in the next 3 years, what could these resources be doing? And I think that the value equation there, it explodes, right? Because as soon as you separate from the bottom line, what's the difference in dollars next year, and start looking at return on investment on your system. And this for us is sort of a thing that we're passionate about because, we do services to build infrastructure, to build out LSF and landmark services and do ISS things and so forth. But we'd much rather be doing value add. And I think as a customer, I'd much rather be doing value add. I'd much rather be focusing on what can I get out of my system than I got to implement a 1099 patch because it's January 29th and I got to get this out.
That's why I love
nobody
consulting.
Likes to do that. Yeah.
And it sounds like what you're saying is Upgrade X allows you to promote your Lawson system administrator to be your internal consultant.
And they should be natural fits for it, every one of them. So perhaps we have some
questions.
I'm going to have to get Mr. Braun's slide in here, too. Next time on the second mouse. 4 payments.
We do have one question.
What?
When you move to the cloud and run payroll, does the client or Infor maintain BSI, things like updating cyclics, tax locator, and bulletins?
That's a good question. It's a pretty straightforward answer. It's what you do today. You're going to be maintaining those bulletins. It's a larger question on where's that line of demarcation in this new world of the cloud. So it's not always the same answer as that one. But in that case, if you have an internal role that's responsible for maintaining your BSI patch levels, that's an internal process, and it'll remain an internal process, and you'll still have a third-party agreement with BSI for your licensing.
And similar other things that we know, security, users, all those things will continue to be maintained in-house.
Yep, whatever your current processes are for user management, security provisioning, all remains the same.
Okay, so it sounds like we have answered all questions that the entire Lawson space has about the cloud. I want to thank everybody for taking the time to attend. Once again, we will be recording this and putting this out on our website and distributing that link. And we have more presentations today. At 1 p.m., very exciting, we're going to talk about global HR. which we think is the next step after upgrading to 10 or migrating to the cloud that everybody should be focusing on. Tremendous opportunity there, the right window to do it. You'll have the infrastructure to put that system up and let that HR team work over time. We have two great presenters for that. At 2:30, Mr. Stott's going to be reprising the 10X Advanced Technical Differences training that got rave reviews at the Southeast Mega Meeting just a month and a half ago. Lots of exciting stuff that he tries to cram into 60 minutes. And then at 4 o'clock, to end the last Friday and last day of July in a summer where we've been inundated with version 10 upgrades, we're going to talk about version 11. Really looking forward to relaxing a little bit and having a good time with that. So thank you very much, guys. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.